if you've worked with someone and you know they get things done, uh,
Hmm.
it's a lot easier to say yes as opposed to the thousands, I'm sure, of scripts that you get sent to you. You're not going to jump on board everything. So
Oh
something's
yeah.
got to be a measure of how far along that thing is going to move. That
Actually, if you send me a script without a request, that's the fastest way to get a form email back saying that I haven't opened it and blocking your email.
And then when would you say is, and I guess again, this probably varies. I'm just interested in your take on it, where the best time to approach is. Are you kind of dealing with let's say screenwriters who are looking for maybe a pathway into screenwriters slash creative producers who are trying to
Hmm.
maybe help plug in a few names that they know, but they essentially just have a script, or is it more someone who's got a slightly more developed package where they've got some budgets done, they've got some maybe some attachments, and then
Hmm.
you kind of come in to look for a place for, I guess, a more developed project package. So is it, which end of that spectrum would you kind of say is the best time to approach someone like yourself?
So I will talk to people at most stages, but for me to come on most of the time, it's the earliest that it's wise to approach me is around as a representative for brokering tasks specifically, is around picture lock.
Right.
There are some exceptions, most notably if I've worked with somebody in the past and I enjoy working with them, I will help develop at a significantly earlier stage. Um, Prime example of this is Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox, which I'm an
Mhm.
executive producer on, and I was the second person told that we were shooting it. Basically, the first
Okay.
person was the lead. When you've been working with somebody on a project for several years, it you develop a relationship and you either hate each other or you become very good friends.
Right.
And it's unclear which way that goes sometimes, but if I've worked with somebody in the past and I've like helped distribute their previous feature, I'm a lot more likely to help them on their next one,
Yeah. And it
basically.
sounds like it kind of comes down to proof of concept in the sense where
Yeah.
if you've worked with someone and you know they get things done, uh,
Hmm.
it's a lot easier to say yes as opposed to the thousands, I'm sure, of scripts that you get sent to you. You're not going to jump on board everything. So
Oh
something's
yeah.
got to be a measure of how far along that thing is going to move. That
Actually, if you send me a script without a request, that's the fastest way to get a form email back saying that I haven't opened it and blocking your email
right.
because that's a legal thing that I'm kind of forced to do and always feels a little harsh when I do. But
Yeah, but I totally understand why you do it because I mean I've encountered it even just in creative conversations over the years when it comes to
Mhm.
writing, because it's almost like there's something in the ether when it comes to story, and maybe it
Mhm.
has to do with the influence of culture, the time we're in, but you sometimes get ideas completely disconnected from one another that sound very similar. And if you aren't really clear to coming out of the gate that I haven't read it, I don't know anything about it. So if you
Mhm.
want to move forward with something, you don't risk them coming back and saying, your idea was just like mine. And so,
Exactly.
yeah,
And I also have a submission agreement for if I do take a script. I don't like taking scripts from people I don't already know, but I will take scripts. I do consult on early stage stuff. I do a lot of consulting around financial documentation because
right.
in addition to being on the sales and distribution side, I've also worked at least a little bit in private equity, primarily with angel groups and things like that. So I do consulting around getting documentation to the point that somebody would actually consider it at
Right.
that point because that's basically the best you can do
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one of the questions I can see maybe someone who's watching asking is, because you mentioned picture
Mhm.
lock, and
Yeah.
there's a bit of chicken and egg in this business, of course. Even if you've got a good script, you've got some people who are interested, who might have some names associated, some leverage associated with them. You're kind of maybe 30% of the way into that kind of development process where you've got bit of a package and some
Mhm.
momentum, but you don't have a locked deal yet because that locked deal sometimes comes as a result of knowing that you have some kind of sales deal or some kind of distribution.
Mhm.
So do you have a kind of buffer line there when it comes to someone who
Yes.
maybe isn't someone you're familiar with on how you make that decision?
So the picture lock line is specifically for brokering
Right.
because there's no point in me bringing a film to sales agents and distributors that's before that stage. Even then, it's iffy.
Mhm.
Really, like I had just last week on another project, uh, a reasonably big distributor say, "Hey, I really like where this is going,
Mhm.
but I feel like I'm doing it a disservice watching it now because I can tell the color and audio and effects aren't done. Send it to me when it's done. When do you expect it to be done?"
Right.
And that was that. And that's a film with some cast in it. And it's just a I need to, and just because we are in a strike area, that distributor was also not a member of the AMPTP. Just clarity. When I come out in more of a consulting capacity, the exact stage of the project is a lot more elastic. But there are upfront fees associated with that because I have only limited time and I have a family, basically.
Sure.
It's got to get paid. It's a so I do as much as I can as cheaply as I can, but can't work for free. I have one program that's ready to go that's kind of designed for right after you finished production, and it's more of a lower cost group program to help prepare you for distribution and actually get your marketing assets and all of that sort of stuff that you need to that you would need to have a better chance at pitching a good sales agent and maybe even getting an MG, depending on who you're talking to.
Right.
MG, minimum guarantee, pay up front for
Mhm.
those who don't know the jargon. And I'm also outlining an earlier stage, which is similar sort of thing, but for people who have just finished a script, and this one's much more focused on financing and getting the project to the stage where the other program would be relevant. But given my largest domain expertise is in marketing and distribution, I figured I'd start there.
Right. Right.
So,
So there's kind of like a there's two tracks there. Correct me if I'm
mhm.
wrong. One is that you've got a finished picture with maybe a minimal deal on some kind of distribution, and you want to get it pushed out more. Then
You don't want distribution if you're approaching me already,
oh, I
because
see.
that's a
Okay.
lot of what I would be doing is getting you the right US distributor and the right international sales agent.
Right. So
So
it would never be a case where you might have domestic distribution only, and then it's still open for international, and you kind of come on and look for markets just in that pocket. You need sort of
I have taken those in the past.
Mhm.
I've actually taken them in the opposite order more.
Yeah.
Like I come on and just handle North America and somebody else is already on for international.
Right.
So but I will work both of those ways. Um I have a couple of people I actually trust to do well on international sales. There aren't that many people I'd trust on that level, but
Mhm.
I've been in the game long enough and I've been lucky enough to find some of the honest actors in the
Right.
area. So
Okay.
who actually sell as well,
Yeah.
because there's a difference between an honest actor who will never lie to you on their reports, but their reports also have 17 cents on them, and somebody who's actually putting numbers on the board.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then the other side of that, of course, is a picture that is not complete. It's all on
Mhm.
paper yet, the
Mhm.
deals and everything. That's sounds a lot like the other one that comes into play. Um, because of course, a lot of times what the sales look like are going to dictate where the money's coming from for the
Oh yeah.
picture itself. So yeah,
I mean, yeah, and a lot of people think you can't get pre-sales anymore, and that's not true.
right,
Um, a lot of the bigger companies do the majority, the medium to large size companies do the majority of their business through pre-sales.
Right.
The big thing is that, again, most of the time those companies won't really pay too much attention until it's at least in post-production, if not past picture lock. It's
Okay.
just but the thing is, the competition is getting so fierce for the actually marketable uh feature films that if they wait too long, they're going to have to pay a pretty high premium for it, which can be in the filmmaker's benefit, but it's also not always in the distributor's benefit. And a lot of times distributors are operating on a thinner margin than you'd think.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, and so if I said to kind of walk us through a little bit of what are some of the essential components to have when coming to someone like yourself, and maybe some of the big mistakes that are made when people do approach. I think you've mentioned one of them where people just sort of mail things in
Mhm.
without any context. What would you say that should look like, and what should people avoid?
So the so if you're making your first feature, um, you're going to have to kind of go into it. If we're in development stage on this,
Mhm.
you're gonna kind of have to go into it with the mindset that you're gonna have to figure out how you can raise at least 80% of the budget yourself.
Mhm.
Um, that can be grants, that can be crowdfunding, that can be mom and dad, that can be that rich uncle, that can be your own pocket. Any of those, but the vast majority of funding for first feature directors comes out of that director's personal network. And that's just the reality of the situation. Now, with that in mind, it's going to be your money and your own relationships on the risk. So you want to make something that has the best possible chance at recoupment, and a lot of that's going to come down to international saleability.